Hello everyone, it's me, Paata Shamugia, poet, and at the specific moment, moderator of this event, which is organized by the Writers' House of Georgia in the frame of this online discussions of the festival. And many thanks to them to this brilliant opportunity. I'm honored to host today the Belarusian poet and activist and translator Iulia Cimafiejeva, who's a distinctive voice in Belarusian literary world. Iulia is the author of two poetry collections. Three poetry collections, sorry, so far. And she was, by the way, one of the participants of Tbilisi International Literary Festival. So Georgian audience knows her to some extent. Hello, Iulia. Hope you are well and healthy.
Hello, Paata. Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, I'm in Minsk now, in my Minsk apartment, and I'm happy to also participate in that event, in that discussion, to tell maybe about Belarusian situation, Belarusian literature for Georgian public. We also don't know so much about your culture and your literature. Unfortunately, maybe you will also share with us something, with me at least.
Yeah. So I think we are ready to start this conversation. Yeah. Okay. Let's start with the current news in Belarus regarding the protests. What's new, and is there any progress? And one more sub-question also. As you know, the law enforcement officers arrested our colleague writer Dmitry Strotsev, maybe, yeah? Strotsev. We also made a statement, or more correctly, PEN Georgia made a statement regarding this issue. Was Strotsev released, or is he still in prison, Belarusian prison? That's the question. And let's talk about the protest rallies in Belarus in general, the content of these protests.
Yeah, the protest started on the 9th of August, so we have more than 2 months now. People are going out into the streets almost every day, and we have one of the cryings during the protest that is каждый день. It means, so you can, if you know,
all the day, every day.
Yeah, every day. Yeah. So people go out into the streets every day, and every Sunday we have a huge manifestation, a huge rallies. Last Sunday we had when you're in the crowd, you can't count all the people that are around you, but it is believed that it was one of the biggest manifestations since the time they started. So there were 150,000 people, maybe more, maybe a bit less, so you can't count. But still, people are very active. They go out into the streets every day, dozens of people, and unfortunately, people are arrested every day. So now, this week, we have a lot of people striking. So workers, factory workers, but also students are very active. And now, so today is, and now we know that students are, they are sent out of the universities. So they're expelled from the universities for showing their active position. Because the president said that yesterday. So now we know that. So there is this moving all the time. So protests are going on and on and on, and we've never had that in our history, in the history of independent Belarus, when these protests were so active. Because I came to the protest about 20 years ago for the first time. And I know that after presidential elections, we had such kind of protest, but never they have been so active and so populous, so multiple. As for Dmitry Strotsev, thank you for your support, and thank you for the letter, open letter, for calling to release him that Georgian PEN Center. made. But Dmitry Strosov was kidnapped, actually, not far from his own home, when he, once in the morning, when he just said goodbye to his wife. And there was no any connection with him. His mobile was not responding, and no one from his family or friends knew where he was till the next morning, when his name was found on the list of the detainees of Okrestina detention center. And now Dmitry is in jail, and he is to stay there for many days more for taking part in as they call it, unauthorized event. So
I see.
Yeah, you know.
Well, let's expand this topic in more detail. I wonder what you expect from these continuous rallies. Will Lukashenko finally give up and will resign? Maybe that's what everybody demands and everybody wants. But if that does not happen, what are you gonna do? What is your plan B, so-called plan B? Is there any specific plan how to continue the fight against a dictator if he does not retreat?
Well, you ask me a very...
I know it's difficult to answer.
Yeah. I'm not a political analyst at all. And all the political analysts that are trying to make their predictions can get wrong. And no one could predict what could happen a year ago, half a year ago. This level of solidarity, this level of rage of people could not be predicted. So I can't say, but nevertheless, we all believe that it's possible. It has never been, we have never been so close to that. I mean, to getting rid of Lukashenko as now, I think. So we still have that hope. And today we are going to read a poem of mine. It's called My European Poem, that was written in English language. We talked previously that we will read it at the end. And in that poem, I wrote about hope, though it's also about hope because before the election, this poem was written before the elections. So before the elections, some days even before, we could not predict that. And we could not predict that we would have that hope. But now we have it, actually. And I can't even say it in Belarusian because in that time, I could not discuss that with my friends. We could not discuss that hope because it seemed so hopeless, all this situation, that now we see that we still have that light in the end of the tunnel. You mentioned your poem, My European Poem. So now let's return specifically to your own poetic life. How did it begin? What was happening in the beginning and which poets influenced you the most? Maybe Belarusian poets or some other poets, foreign poets, I don't know. I was born
what was your inspiration? Shortly. Shortly. No, the question is short. You can answer.
Okay.
Take your time.
I was born in a village. It's now in the Chernobyl zone, and we will read also another poem I know. About that village. Then my family was evacuated and to another village where my parents live now, and. But my parents, though they are village dwellers, they always wanted me to read and to be educated. And I started to read in very early, maybe not very early. There are some children who can read early, but at the age of 5 maybe. And I liked literature a lot. And my first poem, as far as I remember, was written when I was 8. It was about a bear. It was in Russian. It was rhymed. So nothing of the kind I write now, of course. Then I read some Russian poets because it was believed that only, of course, a Belarusian education even now is very Russified. So we have a lot of that Russian literature that we are reading, and it's believed to be the real literature. So those Pushkin, he is considered at school to be the biggest poet.
May I interrupt? May I interrupt?
Yeah.
I think it will be very interesting for Georgian audience to know that you have two state languages, if not mistaken, Belarusian and Russian. I wonder which language you write in, and in which language do Belarusian poets prefer to write in general? I think it's Belarusian language or Russian.
Yes. I write in Belarusian language. I write in Belarusian, so I chose that language. And when I was a child, I started writing mostly Russian language poetry. As it was considered to be, so the best examples were considered to be Russian. But then I started when I was about 20 or so. I started writing in Belarusian language. I chose that language, and in Belarusian literature, maybe not. Even now, I think that most of the poets and prose writers, they choose that language. So it's not their mother tongue. It's a chosen language for you to understand. But we also have Russian, we have poets and writers that write in Russian. For example, Dmitry Strotsov, you mentioned him, he writes in Russian. But I would say that most of the poets that we have now, they write in Belarusian language, and they are more read. They are better read, I would say. And prose writers and poetry writers also.
Well, in your poems, you often mention the oppressive environment in Belarus, which is obvious. Does this affect the literary process as well? For example, do you have a printing problem due to censorship in Belarus? And if so, what solutions do you find to escape the censorship?
You know, Lukashenko came to power 26 years ago. So it's quite a long time. And during this time, and this oppression, he started pressing literature and poets, writers, also almost from the very beginning, and politics, of course. So we have quite much time to adopt. So, for example, now in Belarus we have two unions of writers, so-called pro-state and so-called independent union of writers. I'm the member of the independent union of writers, and we also have pro-state literary magazines, pro-state literary publishing houses. And at the same time, we have so-called independent literary magazine, a newspaper. We have some internet projects that publish poets and writers who are in opposition to the government. So there is censorship, I would say, but only in the state-owned literary publishing houses or newspapers and magazines. But you can publish what you want to also, in independent publishing houses. So you can avoid that censorship. But the thing is, we don't have so much public. You know, during this time of Lukashenko in power, the public, Belarus, so common people, let's say, they don't know much about Belarusian literature. For example, it's taught at schools, but children think that all the writers are dead already. So they died in the 20th century or even in the 90s. So there is no one. And only if you are an active person, only if you are interested in literature, culture, you want to develop, you want to grow up as a human being, as a personality. So you start looking for somebody. So, and it's also my story. So I come from a village. I'm not a Minsk dweller, and I started looking for somebody, and this way I joined literary circus as well.
One more question about Lukashenko, and I promise we will forget about this guy altogether.
Won't forget about him, unfortunately.
Yeah. As I see, he will likely have to relinquish power, and if so, do you think it will somehow revitalize the literary process as well? I mean, do you think that the change of the political landscape can somehow reshape the literary scene as well?
I would say that I'm sure it would do. Because, you know, what we see now is not about the processes that are going on now. They're not only about Lukashenko power, maybe, and that we are struggling against him, fighting against him. So that's very important. So I can't deny it. But on the other hand, we have another very important and interesting process going on in Belarusian society. So it's a kind of we start finding our own identity, our cultural national identity as well, and we can see this revival of the interest. Even now, we can see that people are interested in literature. And literature from old times, but also in literature of the writers that are still alive. You can see, for example, poets read their poems just in the yards of the houses. So they are invited, they come. Sometimes OMON, sometimes police comes and they want to disperse those people, but sometimes they don't. And we have a lot of interest toward Belarusian music. So one of the very important attributes of our fight, let's say, is music and singing. People are singing all the time. They have a lot of poems that are mostly, by the way, in Belarusian language also, though these protests are mostly Russian speaking. So because now at the moment, I would say that 90% at least of Belarusians are Russian speaking in their everyday life, but still they are bilingual and they can understand Belarusian, and if they are asked and if they try, they can speak it as well. So, but I believe that these protests they will help, even if they fail. I think they will help Belarusian culture to develop and to attract more and more public, because public is getting more and more interested in Belarusian culture, literature, music, theater, and so on.
Yeah, that's good. You mentioned your poem, My European Poem. That's the title of the text. And what I found in this poem is that beyond the criticism of the current government, I also saw kind of skepticism toward the European leaders who are mainly limited to concerns, and that's obvious. Do you think that Europe should be involved more actively, or let's say more aggressively in the ongoing processes in Belarus?
You know, this question can put me into prison. My answer to that question can put me into prison, because we have a lot of laws some laws that prohibit speaking about that. So to ask more.
So please don't answer. Yeah,
I just mean that.
I understand that.
No, it's okay. It's just a detail. This poem, as I've mentioned, that was written some days before the elections, when we didn't know what could happen. And it was just based on my previous experience of how European politicians are expressing their concerns and so on. Actually, I don't know what could be done now, because Belarusian authorities, they don't give a damn about all these concerns, let's say.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, maybe some when economy is involved, then maybe it could be felt, and they could get scared. But now I don't know. So maybe I won't say more.
Did you mean sanctions or? Okay, that's what I said. Well, unfortunately, we are coming to the end of the conversation, and let's read your poem together. I love this poem, by the way. This poem is my European poem. Several times, we mentioned it several times. And it sounds like a manifesto and addresses many problems extremely critically. I'm going to read it in Georgian, and you will read it in English.
Okay,
and why?
Oh yeah. Okay.
And, yeah. Can you explain why you read it in English? That would be also interesting for Georgian audience.
Yeah, that's my first English language poem.
Yeah.
You know, as I mentioned, it was written before the elections. It was written on the 4 days before the elections, and I couldn't find words. So in that time, I couldn't find words in my own language to express that fear and to express that hopelessness, because we have always failed, because during these president elections, during the protests after the president elections, when Lukashenko won, and I didn't want to, but I needed to express that all in words. And once, just at night, words started coming to my mind, and so the next day I wrote that poem. So that was an attempt to find the words in another language, in the language of world language, the language of the empire. On the one hand, this British Empire, but on the other hand, and American also, but on the other hand, this international language also. I wanted to address my foreign friends and to tell them about the fear that I feel, but on the other hand, to find that hope for myself, to feel myself another person, not the one that is not that loser that fails all the time. That's was also
very good explanation. So let's get started.
You will. I will start.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please.
Okay. My European poem. This poem should be written in English. This poem should be written in German. This poem should be written in French and Swedish and Spanish, in my adorable Norwegian, maybe in Finnish, Danish, and Dutch. Baltic languages should decide for themselves. No Belarusian version for the poem, no Russian for the poem, no Ukrainian version for the poem, the rest at your choice. This poem should be written in the languages of human rights organizations, of those multiple expressed concerns by European politicians. So, shall I get used to the thought that I could be taken to prison by the man wearing black, by the man in plain clothes, by the man with 4 fat letters on their fat black backs? Otherwise, my country won't gain any freedom, and it could not work anyways, as usual. Shall I take it calmly that I could be beaten and ultimately found guilty for that because, they would say, I cried anti-state slogans like freedom or release all political prisoners, though I would not need to cry them out at all, like my Facebook friends and thousands of someone else's friends. In order to be arrested or beaten, I won't have to cry anything. I won't have to do anything. Just stand silently, just be. I know I have to get used to that thought, just in case, because it's so likely to happen. Oh my, I haven't saved those telephones yet whom to contact in case of detention. I can't say that in Belarusian. I can't say that in Russian. I can't say that in Ukrainian, only in English. I'm afraid. Only in German. Ich habe Angst. Only in Norwegian. Jag rädd. That's enough. For all the variants, please use Google Translate. The translations should be more or less accurate. These are not those strange East European languages with their funny Cyrillic letters. I'm afraid, like you would be in my place if you lived in a country that is not free, where they have had the same president for 26 years. Oh my God, more than 2/3 of my life I've spent under the power of a crazy person whom I've never voted for. Sorry, it's a long poem, because it's a long story. I spent more than 2/3 of my life under the power of the man I've never voted for, who harassed and suppressed and killed, they say, and when I come to the literary festivals abroad, and when I speak English, and try to tell the complicated history of my country, when I'm asked, as if I'm another person, as if I'm like all those European poets and writers who do not have to get used to the thought that they could be arrested and beaten for the sake of their country's freedom, as if my ugly history is just a harsh story that I can easily put out from the anthology of modern European short stories because it's too long and too dull. When I tell it in English, I want to pretend that I'm you, that I don't have that painful experience of constant protesting and constant failing, that nasty feeling of frustration and dismay. I want to pretend that I have a hope, because when I tell it in Belarusian, we all realize, there is none we can look forward to. So forgive me my nagging in a half-broken English, my Eastern European never-ending complaints, as having read the books you've read, I still want to have a hope. I still believe I have a right for a hope, that hope could build its nest on my roof and sing its song in Belarusian, not in Russian.
Bravo. Thank you. Now in Georgian.
Yeah.
Ჩემი ევროპული ლექსი. ეს ლექსი ინგლისურად უნდა იყოს დაწერილი. ეს ლექსი გერმანულად უნდა იყოს დაწერილი. ეს ლექსი უნდა იყოს დაწერილი ფრანგულად, შვედურად, ესპანურად, ჩემს საყვარელ ნორვეგიულ ენაზე. შესაძლოა ფინურ, დანიურ და ჰოლანდიურ ენებზე. ბალტიის ქვეყნების ენება თავად გადაწყვეტონ. არ არსებობს ბელარუსული ვერსია ამ ლექსისთვის, არ არსებობს რუსული ვერსია ამ ლექსისთვის, ამ ლექსის უკრაინული ვერსია არ არსებობს, დანარჩენი შენს არჩევანზეა. ეს ლექსი უნდა დაიწეროს უფლებადამცველი ორგანიზაციების ენებზე, შეშფოთების მრავალჯერადად გამომხატველი ევროპელი პოლიტიკოსების ენებზე. ნუ თუ უნდა შევეგუო იმას, რომ შეიძლება ციხეში ჩამსვან შავებში ჩაცმულმა კაცებმა, უბრალოდ ჩაცმულმა კაცებმა, შავ ზურგზე 4 მსხვილი 120 წარწერის მქონე კაცებმა, წინააღმდეგ შემთხვევაში ჩემი ქვეყანა ვერ მოიპოვებს თავისუფლებას და როგორც წესი ჩაფლავდება. ნუ თუ მშვიდად უნდა მივიღო, რომ შეიძლება მცემონ და საბოლოოდ გამოვცხადდეთ დამნაშავედ, როგორც ისინი იტყოდნენ. მე ვყვიროდი ანტისახელმწიფოებრივ სლოგანებს, როგორიც ამ მშვიდობა, ან გაათავისუფლეთ პოლიტიკური პატიმრები, თუმცა მათი ყვირილის გარეშეც დამიჭერდნენ, როგორც ჩემ Facebook-ის ათასობით მეგობარი ან სხვათა Facebook-ის მეგობრები. აღარ მომიწევს ყვირილი, აღარ მომიწევს არაფრის კეთება, უბრალოდ ჩუმად უნდა ვიდგე, უბრალოდ ვიყო. ვიცი რომ ამას უნდა შევეგუო ყოველი შემთხვევისთვის, რადგან სწორედ ასე იქნება. ღმერთო, მათი ტელეფონის ნომრებიც არ შემინახავს ჩემი დაკავების შემთხვევაში, ვისაც უნდა დაუკავშირდნენ. მე არ შემიძლია ამის თქმა ბელარუსულად, მე არ შემიძლია ამის თქმა რუსულად, ამას ვერ ვიტყვი უკრაინულად, მხოლოდ ინგლისურად I'm afraid, მხოლოდ გერმანულად ich habe Angst, მხოლოდ ნორვეგიულად jeg red. ეს საკმარისია, სხვა ვარიანტებისთვის გთხოვთ გამოიყენოთ Google Translate. თარგმანები მეტნაკლებად ზუსტი უნდა იყოს. ეს ხომ არ არის უცნაური აღმოსავლეთ ევროპული ენები მხიარული კირილიცას ასოებით. მე შინია, როგორც შენ შეგეშინდებოდა ჩემ ადგილზე, რომ გეცხოვრა არათავისუფალ ქვეყანაში, სადაც ერთი და იგივე პრეზიდენტი ყავთ 26 წლის განმავლობაში. ღმერთო ჩემო, ჩემი ცხოვრების 2/3 გავატარე შეშლილი ადამიანის ძალაუფლების ქვეშ, რომლისთვისაც ხმა არასდროს მიმიცია ბოდიში. ეს ლექსი რომ ასე ვრცელია, იმიტომ რომ ეს ვრცელი ამბავია. ჩემი ცხოვრების 2/3-ზე მეტი გავატარე იმ კაცის ძალაუფლების ქვეშ, ვისაც ხმა არასოდეს მიმიცია, ვინც ავიწროებდა და თრგუნავდა და კლავდა, ასე ამბობენ. როდესაც ამას ინგლისურად ვამბობ, თავს ვიტყვევ, ვითომ შენ ვარ, რომ მუდმივი პროტესტის გამოხატვის და მუდმივი მარცხის მტკივნეული გამოცდილება არ მაქვს და არც იმედგაცრუების საშინელი გრძნობა მინდა თავი მოუტყუო, ვითომ იმედიანად ვარ, რადგან როცა ბელარუსულად ვამბობ, ვაცნობიერებ რეალობას, ჩვენ ყველანი ვაცნობიერებთ, რომ არავინ არის ვისგანაც რამე შეიძლება ველოდეთ. როდესაც უცხოეთში ჩავდივარ, ლიტერატურულ ფესტივალებზე და ინგლისურად ვლაპარაკობ, ვცდილობ მოვუყვე ჩემი ქვეყნის რთული ისტორია, როდესაც ისინი მეკითხებიან. თითქოს სხვა ადამიანი ვიყო, თითქოს მე ეს ევროპელი პოეტები და მწერლები ვიყო, რომლებსაც არ სჭირდებათ იმაზე ფიქრი, რომ მათი დაჭერა და ცემა დასაშვებია მათივე ქვეყნის თავისუფლების იდეით. თითქოს ჩემი გონჯი ისტორია მხოლოდ უხეში ამბავი იყოს, რომ ადვილად გამოვყო თანამედროვე ევროპული მოთხრობების ისტორიიდან, იმიტომ რომ ასე ვრცელია და ძალიან მოსაწყენი, ასე რომ მაპატიე ნახევრად დამტრეული ინგლისური ბუზღუნი, ჩემი აღმოსავლეთ ევროპული უსასრულო წუწუნი, თითქოს უკვე წაკითხულ წიგნებს გეკითხავდე, მე ისევ მსურს რომ მქონდეს იმედი და ამ იმედს შეეძლო საძირკვლის ჩაყრა ჩემი სახლისთვის და ვიმღერო სიმღერები ბელარუსულად და არა რუსულად. That's in Georgian.
Thank you.
Next poem, it's called 1986. Please, Yulia.
Yeah, and now you'll hear at last Belarusian language, but not this international English. 1986. Мы не смогли забрать вас с собою, безногие наши домы. Не смогли узвалить вас на плечи и вынести на себе свежозараные городы, могилки. Мы не здолели выкопать с кореннем ваши крыжи и пересадить их у чистую хлебу. Яблоневые сады, стулюши, белоружовые повеки, вы замолкли з надеей, чакаючи на наше вертання, и каліцезієм оплодненные. Чырванню налилися ваши завязи, только здичелые сголодалые кошки по зорках вернулись назад, али яблоко у ваших, яны все ровно не ели. Яблоки. Опадали и гнили, крыжи, высыхали без наших слез городы, заблытывались у пустозелли и замирали. А наши домы старели. Домы губляли от гора розум и память. Чужие люди вырвались веками дошки подлоги, зняли со стен пыльные диваны с паулинами, скрали все наши хворые речи, якие ніхто не мог вылечить, речи, якие самі мовчали про свою хворобу, речи, без яких наши домы зморщились и шаурели. Праз много годов мы приехали в гости, и только могилковые крыжи помахали нам вышиваным ашмотцем старых рушников. Ни домы, ни городы, ни яблони нас не признали. И як не упрошивали наши добрые продки со своих свежеприбраных могил. Ни домы, ни городы, ни яблони нам ничего не даровали. Yeah, that was...
Oh, thank you. So now I'm gonna read the Georgian version of this poem. It's 1986. 1986. ჩვენ ვერ შევძელით თქვენი წაყვანა, უფეხებო ჩვენო სახლებო ვერ შევძელით თქვენი ზურგზე წამოკიდება და გზადაგზა თრევა, ბაღბოსტნებო ახალ მოხნულნო, საფლავებო ჩვენ ვერ შევძელით თქვენი ჯვრები ფესვებიანა და მოგვეთხარა და გადაგვერგო სუფთა მიწაში, ვაშლის ხეებო თქვენ მინაბეთ შეფაკლული ქუთუთოები და დადუმდით ჩვენს მოლოდინში, როდესაც აღაშღაჟდნენ ცეზიუმით ჩასახული თქვენი ნასკვები, მხოლოდ კატები, ველურები და მშივრები დაბრუნდნენ უკანცის მნათობებს გამოყოლილნი, მაგრამ ვაშლები არ ჭამეს მაინც. ვაშლები ცვიოდა და ლპებოდა, ზეზეულად ხმებოდნენ ჯვრები, ჩვენს ცხელ ცრემლებს მოკლებულები, ბაღბოსტნები კი შამბნარებში იბლანდებოდნენ და ჩამიჩუმიც არ იყო მათი, ბერდებოდნენ ჩვენი სახლები და კარგავდნენ დარდისაგან ჭკუასა და მეხსიერებას, უცნობებმა იატაკს ფიცრები ამოგლიჯეს ლურსმნებიანად, ფარშევანგებით მოხატული დამტვერილი ხალიჩები კედლიდან წაიღეს და მოიპარეს ავადმყოფი ჩვენი ნივთები, რომელთა განკურნება აღარავის შეეძლო აწი, ნივთები, რომლებიც კლინს არ ძრავდნენ საკუთარ სენზე, ნივთები, რომლებთაც გარეშე ჩვენი სახლები უკვე აღარ იყვნენ ჩვენი სახლები. და როდესაც დიდი ხნის შემდეგ მიტოვებულ ამ ადგილებს ვესტუმრეთ, მხოლოდ საფლავის ჯვრებმა დაგვიქნიეს ძველი ნაქარგი ტილოებით მოწყენით ხელი. არც ვაშლის ხეებმა, არც ბაღბოსტნებმა და არც სახლებმა ჩვენ აღარ აგვცნეს. მათ დიდი ხანი ევედრებოდნენ ჩვენი კეთილი წინაპრები თავიანთი სულ ცოტა ხნის წინ მოწმენდილი საფლავებიდან, თუმცა არც სახლებმა, არც ბაღბოსტნებმა და არც ხეებმა არაფერი არ გვაპატიებს. This poem is dedicated to Chernobyl explosion, as I know. So can you tell us a couple of words about this, the history of this poem, the story of this poem?
Yeah, behind it maybe. I've already told that I was born in a zone that now is radioactive. It's people are forbidden to go there. No one lives there. So it's a 15-kilometer zone, and but still in Belarus, people come to their native places, to their villages. It's about a village. Only one day in a year. It's a day. It's called in Belarusian Radunica. It's a kind of holiday when people go to the cemeteries, where they clean their cemeteries and care for the tombs and all these things. For the crosses also, we have a lot of crosses, and it's also about that. So how we came to that place after some years, and people have been coming even now there, and it's also stays to be a kind of meeting point for those who were separated. So people lived on the same place in the same village for some centuries, but then they had to leave their own their houses, their things, and so and it's not in a wartime, so there was no war that made them to go away, but that was this catastrophe. And I would say that still in Belarus, it's this topic, the psychological problems of people who had to leave there, who were evacuated, who had to leave their homes, is not at all spoken about. So it's
I see.
So that's why I want to express that longing for that place, your place, and that's it.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that the Georgian translation of this poem belongs to Shotayatashvili, Georgian poet and translator, and thank to him. Thank you, dear Yulia. Thank you for being part of this online conversation. It was short, but I hope quite fruitful conversation, dialogue. And I hope also that despite all these obstacles, everything's gonna be fine with you and with Belarus. Stay strong.
Thank you. We hope so. And thank you for this opportunity to tell about us, to listen to you and to listen to Georgian language, a very beautiful language. I adore it. Thank you. And maybe someday we still hope that in May I would be able to come to a beautiful country and to
you are always welcome.
To meet you in person. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.